Welcome folks, welcome back to the Risk Academy. Today we're going to get into some more of our nuts and bolts of actually the risks. We're in chapter 7, and one of the things we have to do, we've talked about our assets, finding the things of value to us, identifying risks, things that could potentially cause us harm. Now we need to sort of classify your risks, and there's a couple different approaches to this. So we're going to talk a little bit about a quantitative versus a qualitative risk. There is a difference. We'll get more in depth here shortly, but I'll give you a hint. The difference is actually listed in their name. All right, so we know we've got quantitative and qualitative risk. What's the difference between the two? I promised you a little earlier, it's written in their name. So quantitative are all about quantities. So we're literally talking about neutral measurements of things, typically done in dollars. We try and find out some value, put a dollar sign to it. That makes it easy for us to do comparing and contrasting. Also makes it easier to do things like ROI. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about this shortly. Versus qualitative risk, quality, that's literally about somebody's best guess. It's typically you get a subject matter expert to give you their best guess on what this actually means and kind of categorize this for you. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about that, and it'll become more apparent once we get into it. But literally the difference between the two is written in their name. You've got quantity, something unique, a neutral set, numbers, dollars, versus quality or qualitative. It's literally about someone's best guess. So let's look at a qualitative or quality risk first, because this is the one that is most commonly used. One of the things is because we're talking about getting your subject matter experts and their best guess here. So they're going to be able to do this in relatively quick fashion. This is something they can look at, maybe look at a little bit of data, and be able to actually give you a level. Typically, we might see levels listed as something like a critical, or a high, maybe a medium, or a low. These are just some examples, they're not all. But you typically make a value judgment, literally as what kind of risk is. We're trying to classify these. Figure out what kind of classification, or in some maybe a criticality level, whatever you want to call it. We need to ultimately be able to take our risks and sort of rank them by priority level, and this is one of the ways we can do this. So again, your qualitative is literally about getting your best people to give you their best guess on what this is. This will help you then be able to prioritize it. If you've got criticals and highs, maybe you might want to address that pretty quickly. So this is one way of doing it. Again, this is the most common way because it is the fastest way of doing this. Okay, so we talked about our qualitative risk, the one that's relatively fast and simple and easy and based upon someone's best guess. The issue with that, though, is one person's best guess may not be the same as another person's best guess, or those folks may not understand the risk appetite your organization has. So because the whole idea of risk came from the financial sector, this whole idea of risk has been around for more than a century, well more than a century. Where we really want to get to in the ultimate world is quantitative risk. Literally, the quantity we're looking at. So we like these because A, they're neutral, and by the way, we always represent everything in dollars. Dollars are neutral. You can look at it. What this will allow us to do is make some return on investment decisions. You don't want to spend $10,000 to save a potential $1,000 loss. So at some point there is a breaking point or a tipping point to where you can spend so much money but do you get any return on that investment? We're trying to manage this. We want to put in the best security possible and address the risks in the best way possible, but we don't want to overkill it. We want to do it just right. So, now, sounds awesome. Quantitative risk takes a long time. There's several values you need to know. We express everything in something called annualized loss expectancy, or ALE. I want to write some things here and formulas that to get to that point. Okay, let's get to these formulas. The first thing is we have our asset value times something called exposure factor. That will actually give us something that we need called a single loss expectancy. That means every time something occurs, that's the value that it will potentially cost you. Whether it's a power supply in a server or a data center going bad, something, lost laptop, you have a single loss expectancy. How much does that happen every one time? Then we take the single loss expectancy, multiply that times something called your annualized rate of occurrence, ARO, and that gives us our magical annualized loss expectancy. So you take what happens once, multiply that by the number of times it occurs per year, and that gives us our magical annualized loss expectancy figure. This is what lets us compare and contrast. Again, if you look here, a lot of information, a lot of values you have to figure out. This is where the hard comes in this. We'd love to everybody have the neutral dollar signs to compare and contrast with. It would make our job easier when we're trying to make decisions. However, doing this in practice, especially for long-term post-acute care medical practices, for most of you is probably a little impractical. If you can get here, by all means do so. This should be the ultimate goal. However, because it is so hard to figure out things like, well, what's my exposure factor actually mean? I know how much my asset's worth, but how much is that am I exposed? And then how many times a year does that actually occur? Or might it occur? Because you're trying to, again, predict or project some things that you may not actually know. So qualitative typically is the most common use because it's the best guess and it's easiest to do. Now, what if we had sort of a combination of these two that lets you do some things and rank things based upon figures or values, but didn't require as much of the complex math? We're going to talk about that here in a minute. Okay, so I promised you what if there was a combination of the two. We call this semi-qualitative. It's a mixture of quantitative and qualitative. Well, what do I actually mean by it's a mixture here? So your SME makes a guess and they rank them on a scale. Instead of seeing things as low, medium, high, critical, you may make a scale of 1 to 4 or maybe 1 to 10. And they're looking to rate us on two things. The first one, okay, is the probability that something will occur. And then we want them to also give us what I call the consequences if something actually happens. You can sometimes hear it called harm, sometimes damage. So what you're trying to get them to do is rate this on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 to 10. And then we'll put it into something called a risk matrix. And I'll show you what that is here shortly. Okay, folks, this is what a risk matrix looks like. Kind of looks like a spreadsheet, doesn't it? You've got your rows and columns. So what we're doing is we're having our subject matter expert give us sort of their best guess about what's the probability of something happen versus the harm that it occurs. So if something has very high harm but very low probability of occurring, think you've got your data center is in Florida and you're looking at the probability of an earthquake. Doesn't happen very often. Okay? Versus, say, you are in Kansas and it's in a tornado alley. So the probability of tornadoes hitting Kansas is pretty doggone high, and the damage or harm that will occur if it happens is pretty high. So literally, if you're looking at a data center in Florida and earthquakes, and a data center in Kansas with tornadoes, you can actually give a numerical value to this. So this one might be 4, this one might be 16. What we're trying to do, again, is be able to prioritize our risks, categorize them, give them some way, whether it's low, medium, high critical, whether it's annualized loss expectancy, or whether you're using some neutral risk matrix value like this. This is going to let you then prioritize your risks. What we're trying to do is fix the important stuff first, correct? We want to get rid of the bad stuff first and then work our way down that list. Okay, so today we talked about some risk and being able to categorize this risk. We talked about qualitative, the best guess, versus quantitative and something called annualized loss expectancy. That formula that gives us dollar figures to compare and contrast, and then sort of a hybrid of the two called semi-qualitative, where we had our risk matrix. Whichever one you choose is up to you and your organization, but you do need to choose one. The whole idea behind, we found our assets, we've identified our risks, you have to prioritize them to know what needs to be get done first. Just as a clinician will go in and triage a particular patient when they see them the first time, you're going to do the same thing with your risks. You're going to look at them and say, oh, I need to be able to prioritize them and do the most important, and if you look in terms of a clinician, the life-threatening things first. So we talked about these risks. You must prioritize. This will give you the tools to be able to prioritize your risks so you can then address them. We're going to talk more about some tools to help you that we've got all these pieces parts. We're missing one other thing, and that's actually what we'll talk about next chapter. And that's, okay, I found the risks, now how do I address them or treat them? We're going to talk about risk treatment next, so please come back. And then we'll talk about a tool, an outstanding tool that you can use to manage those after that.